In this video, we'll be going over illustrative mathematics, Algebra 1, Unit 1, One Variable Statistics, Lesson 1, Getting to Know You. Our learning goal for this video is let's work together to collect data and explore statistical questions. Which one doesn't belong as your first activity? So our questions are, question A, how many potato chips are in this bag of chips? Question B, what is a typical number of chips in a bag of chips? Question C, what type of chips are these? And question D, what types of chips do students in this class prefer? Take a few minutes, analyze the questions, and see if you can come up with which one doesn't belong. So we've paused for a few minutes, and we're going to try to rationalize which one doesn't belong. So actually, there could be an argument that each one of these doesn't belong. Let's go one by one. Question A, we can argue doesn't belong because there's only one right answer to the question, and it's numerical. Question B can be argued to be not belong because this is a statistical question, would require numerical data to answer it, or you would need to collect data and find a measure of center to answer this question. Question C could be argued to not belong because this is not a statistical question and will require categorical data to answer it, or there's only one right answer that is non-numerical. And question D could be argued to not belong because this is a statistical question and required categorical data to answer this question, or this question could be answered by looking at the answer that is repeated most often in the data. So each one of these questions be argued to not belong. In our first activity, the teacher will assign you a set of data questions. Write another question of your own that will require data collected from the class to answer. For each of the 4 questions, write a survey question that will help you collect data from the class that can be analyzed to answer the questions. Ask the 4 survey questions to 15 classmates and record their responses to collect data. If you have less than 15 classmates, ask everybody in your class. And collecting the data to return. After collecting the data, return to your group and you're going to analyze the data. So there are questions that you're going to be answering. What is a question of your own that will require data collected from the class to answer? What are 4 survey questions you will ask your classmates? Summarize the data for each question in a sentence or 2 and share the results with your group. With your group, decide what the responses for number 1 have in common. Then do the same for questions number 2 and 3. Does the question you wrote fit best with the numbers from number 1 and 2, 1, 2, or 3, and explain your reasoning. So for example, if you're trying to write your own questions, on average, how many letters are in the family last names for students in this class? You might want to ask your classmates, your survey question might be, how many letters are in your last name? If you're trying to do number 2 from set A, which month has the most birthdays from the class? You might want to ask your classmates, what month is your birthday in? Question 3 from set A, if you're trying to make a question for to survey your classmates, how many periods or blocks have there been before this math class? So you might want to ask them, how many periods have there been before the math class? So those are some questions you might want to summarize to help so you can collect your data. And here's all the questions. Question 1 is from sets A, B, C, and D. Questions 2, questions 3, and question 4 is your own question, of course. And things to synthesize. What makes a question statistical? So to make a question statistical, you have to be collecting some type of data. What's an example of a non-statistical question? It's a question that only has a right or wrong answer. So for example, what is the solution to x plus 1 equals 2? When is George Washington's birthday? Those aren't statistical questions because they only have one right answer. An example of statistical question that we cannot use in class. So think about some things we haven't used already. What type of data is collected to answer the statistical question? Would the class rather have pizza or donuts? So basically there's two types of data. There's numerical data and categorical data. Numerical data, everything is answered using numbers. Categorical data, everything's used during a category. So this would be a categorical data. What's an example of statistical question that results in numerical data? You can ask one of your classmates how many brothers and sisters do you have? How many slices of pizza did you eat for dinner? What are some different ways to represent data graphically? So that'll be covered in the next lesson. But to get us thinking, we can graph data using a histogram, a box plot, a dot plot, stem and leaf plot. There's many different ways to represent data graphically. Okay, our learning targets, which I hope we've covered. I can tell statistical questions from non-statistical questions and can explain the difference. I can tell the difference between numerical and categorical data. So now you should be categorizing your questions as either statistical questions require numerical data to answer. This is your cool down activity. Statistical data question requiring categorical data to answer, or a non-statistical question. There's actually one of each. Our vocabulary for today. Categorical data are data where the values are categories. For example, the breeds of 10 different dogs are categorical data. Another example is the colors of 100 different flowers. You can't count breeds of dogs. You can't count colors. Your breeds of dogs, your answers might be like a Chihuahua, Pit Bull, German Shepherd, etc., etc., etc. They're not numbers. The colors are different. 100 flowers: red, orange, pink, purple, lavender. Those aren't numbers. They're categories. A non-statistical question is a question which can be answered by a specific measurement or procedure where no variability is anticipated. For example, how high is that building? There's only one answer. If I run at 2 meters per second, how long will it take me to run 100 meters? There's only one answer. So these are not statistical questions. Numerical data, also called measurement or quantitative data, are data where the values are numbers, measurements, or quantities. For example, the weights of 10 different dogs are numerical data. So one dog might weigh 10 pounds, another might weigh 50 pounds. A small dog might weigh 5 pounds. There's going to be some variability, and these are all numbers that I'm mentioning. A statistical question is a question that can only be answered by using data and where we expect the data to have variability. For example, who is the most popular music artist at your school? When do students in your class typically eat dinner? Which classroom in your school has the most books? There's going to be some variability in all these questions. For example, the most popular music artist at your school. Somebody might like Michael Jackson. Somebody else might like a more modern artist. Somebody else. There could be a lot of different answers. When do students in your class typically eat dinner? One student may eat dinner at 5 o'clock. Another may eat dinner at 7 o'clock. One may eat at 5:30. There's going to be some variability in those answers. And which classroom in your school has the most books? One student might make an argument that the math class has the most books. Another student might make an argument that one of the science classes has the most books. Another student might make an argument that one of the English classes has the most books. So there's going to be some variability in all your answers to those. So that brings us to the end of lesson 1. Hopefully you're able to gather an understanding of statistical and non-statistical questions, and also numerical and categorical data. See you in the next video when we talk about representing data.